Hello, my name is Kent Davy, and I'm the moderator for today's discussion with mental health experts who grapple with suicide, its prevention and treatment. Mental health professionals joining us today have frontline roles in helping people, their families, and others stuck on these tragic paths. The victims of suicide appear to come from all ages, races, identities, can be at home or homeless, in school or at work, in the military, or as veterans. That leads us to ask what resources are available to help Oceanside residents. For someone in the midst of crisis, who should they call? What signs should a parent, friend, or neighbor watch for? What strategies are useful for risk reduction? As a community, what can we do? What should we do to help? I'd like to welcome Frank Garcia from Exodus Recovery, Chad Castrita from Care Solace, Douglas Alvarado from Courage to Call, and Kat Torres from Lifeline Community Service. Let's begin with a brief explanation from each of you of what your expertise is and your area of focus. Kat?
So what we do is I'm with Lifeline Community Services and specifically the Here Now program. So what we do is we are a suicide prevention and early intervention program that goes into all the middle and high schools in North County and shares information about the warning signs for depression, how if left untreated it can lead to thoughts of suicide and self-harm. We talk about like how to get help for yourself or a friend, coping skills, bullying, all that lovely stuff, and we're able to provide assessments to students and risk assessments to make sure students feel safe.
Thank you. Douglas?
Yes, I work with Courage to Call. We're a nonprofit organization funded by San Diego County, and we work with active duty military veterans and their families. And what we do is provide counseling resources to them. I serve as the lead veteran peer counselor. My background is as a veteran myself. I'm an Army combat veteran. I served in Afghanistan 2011 to 2012, and I know some of the issues that may come with that, coming back from combat tours and separation from military. So we serve the military community, provide counseling services. We also provide peer support groups and also different benefits to them like food distributions, anything that they're in need of.
Okay, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Chad?
Yes, Chad Castrita. I'm the founder and CEO of Care Solace, a mental health mission known for care coordination and navigation in the state of California. We service 3.5 million of the 5.8 million students in the state of California. Virtually every school district in San Diego County uses our service. What we do is we're labeled as the Uber of mental health. We clear the way for insurance, regardless if you have no insurance. Our objective is to appoint you accessibly, expeditiously into services, whether you need, DBT, CBT, CAMS, crisis intervention, or longer-term, more intensive supports, or whether you need a telehealth appointment, or whether you need social services. We're there to support you. So we're a care coordinator navigator.
Thank you. Frank?
So I oversee the Exodus Recovery Crisis Stabilization Units. We have 2 of them here in North County. We have one in Vista and one in Oceanside. And the whole purpose of those crisis stabilization units, or CSUs for short, is we provide psychiatric services to adults 18 and over who have Medi-Cal, Medicare, or no insurance that are going through a psychiatric crisis. And that can mean as low on the spectrum of I'm feeling a little bit anxious, I'm feeling a little bit depressed, I need to talk to a doctor, or psychiatrist, or social worker, all the way to the more intense where I'm feeling suicidal, I have intent, I have a plan, and law enforcement has then placed them on an involuntary hold, and they bring them to us for further evaluation. We figure out whether we can stabilize them with nursing services, psychiatric services, social work services in a 24-hour window of time, and then discharge them safely back into the community. Or if not, we're triaging them to a higher level of care, like an inpatient psychiatric setting.
Okay, thank you. Kat, I'd like to start with you. What are the current treatments and strategies that are available for people who are in distress?
Yeah, so definitely there's lots of different options as far as, therapy. Somebody could go for individual therapy, group therapy, family therapy, and even amongst therapies, there's so many different types, CBT and DBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, and dialectical behavioral therapy being the main ones for suicide prevention, and for those that are struggling with suicidal ideation or thoughts of self-harm. There's also medications that are available, so that somebody would talk to a doctor, psychiatrist to get that started. And then of course there's always, so for somebody in crisis, there's always inpatient care as well that they can do.
Okay. Chad, can you explain to us what's cognitive behavioral therapy and DBT? What is that about?
Well, I'm not a clinical practitioner. That would be best served with the clinical community. But I would say that our objective and one of the biggest issues we solve is what to do, where to go in the time of a crisis.
Okay.
People don't know. When it hits their home, they have no idea how to begin, how to start. There's a laundry list of services, whether you have Kaiser, whether you have no insurance, whether you're on the Medi-Cal system, whether you have United Healthcare. How do you even begin to start the process? And so our objective is to take a person that's an 11 and really anxious, really like stressful, and move them down to a 2.
Okay.
And so when they touch our service, our objective is to filter through that and get them into whether it's therapy, inpatient, outpatient, IOP, PHP, residential, medical detox, or a social service need.
Okay.
So that's what we do.
Let me go back to you, Kat. Can you explain what those two basic therapies,
Yeah.
we don't know I don't know what it's about.
Not a problem. Most people don't. So with cognitive behavioral therapy, what you're looking at as cognition, so your thoughts. So we think that your thoughts influence your emotions and your behavior. So in CBT, you're kind of looking at, okay, what are those thoughts that I'm having? Are they realistic? How likely are they actually to happen? Is this driven by anxiety or by other things that are coming up? And how can I kind of reframe those thoughts or take on another perspective to try to figure out like a different way around that or a different way of thinking that can decrease those stressors in you and allow you to handle that situation better. Now, this differs from dialectical behavioral therapy, which is more focused on, kind of the distress tolerance and figuring out, interpersonal relationships. So somebody that is struggling with maybe personality disorder or, even suicidal ideation that's driven by, trauma or things that they're going through currently. So it's kind of looking at that and figuring out, okay, how do I build up my resilience to try to work through that? And a lot of that being dialectical, being the way that you talk to other people and work through that with them.
Okay. How does the veteran community with, I assume, extraordinarily high incidence of PTSD coming out of, how do you cope?
Yeah. Well, coping with post-traumatic stress, one thing I do want to make clear also is that even though it is a high area of that happening, it's not synonymous with the veteran.
No,
it's
no,
not
I didn't mean to imply that. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. When it comes to like suicidality, like topics like the modality of dialectical behavior therapy, something like that. Kat mentioned like 2 of the skills that's utilized with it, of
The interpersonal effectiveness.
Yeah, interpersonal effectiveness, and then so working on the relationships and how those are built. There's a lot of impact that's happened when you're in the military and you build these relationships that are very life and death with some of the service members that you're surrounded by. And what that does is trigger a lot of the part of the brain that activates the fight, flight, freeze response. And when we return back, a lot of what happens is that we have a difficult time just being in a society thinking that it's safe, being out in public and thinking that nothing's going to happen, because we're so used to that being the norm for us.
Okay.
And 2 of the other skills with DBT are also mindfulness techniques. That's one of the first things that we'll tackle with DBT, because what we need to learn is that we can be present in the moment without the feeling of danger surrounded by us.
How do you convince somebody of that? Can you give me an example of a technique that would work for that kind of thing?
Sure, absolutely. Like here in Oceanside, one thing that's very helpful for that is even just being in the beach, putting your toes in the sand. like something that's sensory, something that can make you feel like you're taking in what's in your environment and taking you out of everything that's gonna impact your life in a negative way. And the best way to do that is to do it with the community. So that's why there's programs that exist like Wounded Warrior Project, who have monthly peer support groups where you meet with other veterans that are experiencing similar things. And they even do Monday mindfulness activities here in Oceanside, where you get together and that's the main focus.
Where are those at?
Yeah, those are in Oceanside Beach. I can send those resources over.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you log into Wounded Warrior Project is primarily focused for post 9/11 veterans.
Okay.
And once you become an alumni with Wounded Warrior Project, then you can get connected to these programs and these activities that they get together with.
It also allows them to, if they would like to volunteer, and they've discovered that volunteering helps when they get back to the community, they realize there's something bigger than themselves. The world is not centered on them, and then a lot of what they deal with from different mental health things starts to level at times. And even for myself, going through things from the war and post-traumatic stress, this has been a massive help for me.
Frank, can you explain to us when someone comes to Exodus, what happens? What's the process like?
So from beginning to end, we end up having we have a team of mental health workers, peer supports, nurses, psychiatrists, and social workers. And all 5 of those team members touch the client when they come in. So when they come in, they're getting a full nursing assessment, they're getting a full psychiatric assessment, and that involves what sort of treatment needs right there for your acute crisis. Okay. And so it's that medication, is that figuring out whether you need ongoing therapy, do you need extra family support like case management at home? Our social work team can go ahead and coordinate that while they're there within that 24 hours and set up these appointments. So they'll get them set up with their next ongoing psychiatry appointment, their primary care appointment. And my doctors end up doing that, like I said, that psychiatric assessment. We figure out what sort of medications you need at that time for your acute symptoms, and then have your ongoing psychiatrist keep following up with that.
I see. How does somebody get to Exodus?
There's 2 specific ways. So one of our main mechanisms is being brought in by law enforcement. And so one of Exodus's, the CSU's goals is to reduce the amount of people going to the emergency room for psychiatric issues or non-medical emergent issues. Okay. So to kind of alleviate that, law enforcement then brings the client in that is going through that psychiatric crisis, and that gets placed on a hold. Now they can come also in voluntarily too. We kind of encourage that because we want to encourage people to reach out and get services when these crises happen. So they'll be brought to us by law enforcement, and they'll still get those same services. The other way is a client can just walk in. We're open 24 hours, 7 days a week. And so when we talk about like resources here in Oceanside, our CSU is located right off of Mission Avenue, right next to El Suped. So we can come in, and if you're struggling with any of the mental health related issues and you just kind of don't know what you need, well, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
So we want to be able to be friendly and have that welcoming environment, and people can just walk in, and then we figure out what exactly you need in that acute crisis.
Okay.
Once somebody is medically stabilized, say if they had suicidal ideations and they did hurt themselves, we medically treat that injury. And then once a bed is available, we would send them to a behavioral health unit or a crisis stabilization unit. A behavioral health unit is a little more long-term, multiple days to weeks, to stabilize mentally somebody before they discharge them home with outpatient therapy. Or we would send them to a crisis stabilization unit, which is a 24-hour care. They hold patients up to 24 hours, getting them stabilized mentally, and then sending them on to outpatient therapy with a psychiatrist, or if they needed, also advance to a behavioral health center. We'd send them to Exodus, Aurora, County Mental Health. There's a number of them, but yeah, those are the 3 main ones that we send people to.
We do have a working relationship with Exodus. If a patient that isn't ours gets services at Exodus, then they will often follow up with us and come to receive services here and get intensive outpatient treatment. And then there's times where we're working with patients in intensive outpatient treatment and they are at risk of needing hospitalization. So we can coordinate with Exodus to have them see if they can stabilize the crisis or if they're going to need a higher level of care than what we can provide.
Can you explain, Chad, for us what Care Solace does vis-a-vis the schools?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, there's two things. So I want to take a step back before I'm going to answer that question, but that's one of the biggest issues is understanding the supply that exists. If you were to look at the City of Oceanside, what is the total supply here by way of every modality? Do we know that? Do we know the wait time and availability for the supply? Do we know what providers are accessible for the demand that exists in Oceanside today?
Okay.
So that's what we understand. So we roll that clarity of the total supply of behavioral health and social services, and we put that into an application in a 24/7 service called a Care Companion to the schools and the families of the schools, so that they can warm hand off a kiddo that needs longer term, more intensive support outside of what a school district can provide on campus, and then to push our application into the hands of families so that they can anonymously and privately contact us 24/7 or use our service on their own time and at will. So that's what we do. So we provide a 24/7 service to the supply side that exists in Oceanside as an example.
Let me go back and ask, what is the demand side in the schools?
Yeah, it's very, so 50% of the total in San Diego County, I'm speaking broader, but 50% of the total cases are Medi-Cal cases and no insurance cases that we see. Out of the 50% of that population, about 65% need therapy pathways. Out of that, 50% want inpatient, like face-to-face appointments. The other half want telehealth appointments because they don't have transportation or they can't get there in a timely manner. The rest are all those longer-term supports. So the other 50% outside of that are for things like inpatient, outpatient, partial hospitalization, residential services, medical detox, and things of that nature.
Okay.
So.
Can you speak to at all, or can any of you speak to the idea of what's the frequency of problems showing up in schools?
I can speak to that. So when we go into a school, so we do 7th through 12th grade, and so every school is, now there's a law where they should be providing this sort of information about the warning signs for depression and suicide to at least one grade. And so our program goes in and does that for them. And so what we're seeing is anywhere from 10 to 20% of their population will actually mark that they would like to talk about themselves or about a friend. So we are seeing that there is an increase from, pre-pandemic. Right. And so after that, the amount that need, say safety plans is a fraction of that. So probably I would say about a quarter of the assessments that we actually do would need like a safety plan or, to follow up with, okay, this is actually a safety concern that we need to inform parents, school, make sure that this child is safe.
Let's say you're a person that at the age of 13, 14, you live in Escondido, all of a sudden you're realizing, oh, this is my sexuality or my identity. Where do you go? Even though schools are allowed to have conversation with you around it, more and more there is a false perception that shouldn't be okay in a school ground, when in reality, school grounds is the only safe place where a 13 years old can go to. In Oceanside, we're blessed to have a leadership in Oceanside School District that does this work, or the libraries, right? But some people are challenging that, the fact that my kids shouldn't be exposed to conversation around being gay or straight in high school, when these are the kids experiencing their own sexuality, even if they are not experiencing it per se, but their own identity, they are not allowed to talk to anybody about it. So the stigma around sexuality, gender identity keeps growing because there are not places where you can go to and feel safe.
So do I infer correctly that probably 5 to 10% of all the kids that you guys come in contact with have got an issue that need help?
Correct.
Okay. when a kid is identified as needing help, what happens for that child?
So
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. So on our side, after we do our presentation within the class, we provide them with an ability to check mark off a box if they are concerned about a safety concern for themselves, like they can't go home that day without being safe. If it's not an emergency, but I'd like to talk to somebody. If they want to talk about a friend, they have a question, or even they don't need to talk. And so after that, we do provide those assessments with those students. And what happens is that during that, we listen to them, we hear them out. We do not give them a certain sorry, your hour's up, you're out type of thing, which I feel is very important for them. They feel very listened and I'm not rushed to do this. And so they can last anywhere from, some check-ins take 15 minutes, some take 3.5 hours. It really depends on what that student wants to share. But at that point, we are assessing to see, have they been having any suicidal ideation? Have they thought of harming somebody else? Have they ever injured themselves on purpose? Is there any bullying happening to them that's influencing them? Is any of these negative coping skills they're turning to, like substance use or self-harm? And then if we identify that there are safety concerns, and also if they've ever attempted before. So these all things, put them at increased risk for potentially attempting suicide. And so we make sure that that we complete a safety plan with them. We get them connected to services. So Solace is one of the people that we actually, the schools will inform them and will say, hey, I think you should put in a referral for this student. And this is how we get them connected to those services. And we also call the parents and make sure our parents are always
that was
informed.
the next question was, how do parents get involved and how does that work?
Yeah, so any recent safety concerns, we always make sure we inform the parent, even if they're like, well, no, that was a month ago and now I'm not feeling that way. Well, a month is still not a long time ago. So we do want to make sure that the parent is informed that, hey, they may not be feeling this right now, but they were feeling it before, which means that it's possible that eventually they might feel that way again. So we want to make sure they're safe. Here's a safety plan. Here's this. Would you like extra resources? What insurance do you have? Would you like to get them into therapy? And then we always make sure the counselors are always informed and the counselors are able to follow up with the student in the weeks after as well.
When you're dealing with the law of sexual harassment, I know that at least, say, if I was a college professor, I would have an affirmative duty to watch out for my students. Is there a similar duty for staff, teachers, or others in a school setting who see a kid that is having trouble? Does that exist?
So at this point, they are mandated reporters, so they do need to report if they suspect that something's going on with a student as far as child abuse or harassment or things like that. However, currently there is no requirement to report if they suspect that there's other things at play, like maybe the child is having some thoughts of wanting to harm themselves.
I haven't had to go to a funeral in a long time. Before was very frequent that we had to go and support families of youth that took their own life. So I think that has changed for the better. However, we're going to see a lot of changes in going back because we see that now LGBT identities have been attacked, unfortunately. And we see a lot of despair from our people, in particular our trans youth. It's afraid to come out. They're not using anymore the available spaces they have at school because they're afraid to be out and be bullied, not just by their peers, but also the adults. So in many ways, yes, we came a long way, but right now in this moment, we're seeing actually the challenge coming up towards the LGBT community, the stigmatizations of the identities and so forth. So we don't know how that is going to reflect on data and numbers in the next few years.
Douglas, what are the things that we could do to help our veteran community best?
Sure. I think if you know any veterans, checking in with them and passing any resources that you're aware of in the community. Like here, for example, in Oceanside, there is the Stephen A. Cohen Military Family Clinic that is available to, once again, post 9/11 veterans and their families. And if they're seeking any assistance with any of the struggles that they're experiencing due to combat trauma or military sexual trauma, or even just the separation from military and having a difficult time adjusting back into civilian life. Letting them know that, you know, you're somebody that's there to actively listen and to provide support. And if they need any referrals, like providing these resources to them. The 988 number is also the Veterans Crisis Line. So if that's something that they're currently experiencing and you're sitting with them or talking with them, and you can provide that number and maybe call with them so that they know there's somebody else that can speak with them.
Our viewers probably know what 911 is. They may
Sure.
not have heard what 988 is. Would you
Right.
explain that?
Yes, so 988 is a veteran crisis line. There was a longer number, and they shifted it down to just the 3 numbers to make it a lot easier to access. So in the case that anyone's experiencing any suicidality, suicidal ideation, or it's getting more extreme, if there may be a plan, intent, or means in place to take their life, then that is a crisis line that they can call.
Okay. Frank, could you tell us or give us an idea of the kinds of things that we who are not professional and just lay people ought to be listening for or be aware of when we hear that there may be a sign or a signal? What should we watch for?
I mean, just as a layperson, it all just comes down to support and just being there as if you're family, spouses, friends, co-workers. When someone's reaching out for help, a lot of times it's not gonna be like, hey, I'm ready, for help right now. I'm ready for therapy right now. Like, you're gonna be noticing they might be coming in late to work if it's a coworker. They may just be not eating as much. They may not be their like peppy self that they used to be. And so it's okay to say, hey, is there anything that's going on? And that first time they may say, no, nothing's going on.
Okay.
But just keep at it and just be like, hey, I'm here for you. I'm gonna be there to support you. And just have that constant check-in, but not check-in.
Okay.
If that makes sense. That you're just talking to, hey, is everything okay? Hey, do you want to go do something else? And then if it's starting to get more and more severe, then reaching out to these resources, reaching out to the Access and Crisis Line, if it's that. Because when you're reaching out to that, it doesn't mean, hey, I just want to kill myself right now. It just means I just need help.
Right.
And I just don't know. And I can just go try to find these resources.
Okay, if I'm worried about my next door neighbor,
Yeah.
and it's that serious, do I call 911? Do I call the ER of the hospital? Do I call 988? Who do I call? What do I do?
Well, one of the things I like about down here in San Diego is you can reach out to the Access and Crisis Line and they become a great funnel for whether to triage you to an emergency service and call law enforcement or 911, or you can have the mobile crisis team respond to that call. So they respond to non-emergent or non-violent calls, and they'll have that team go out and do a full assessment to see what exactly is going on and try to de-escalate that situation. So that person may just contact the Access and Crisis Line. It's 888-724-7240. And I reminded myself of that when my coworkers told me it's 7 days a week, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 24 hours, no suicides. And I give credit to Megan, the program director for the mobile crisis team, for that one.
Give us that number one more time.
It's 888-724-7240.
So that one is local to San Diego.
Okay.
So 988 would be the national suicide prevention hotline that anybody could use. But anybody in San Diego, that one will know exactly, they'll be able to give you the list of the local resources as well. They also have a text line at 741-741. So you can text, it says text home, but you could really text any word to 741-741. And that is not a robot, that is a real live person messaging you back, because some people don't feel as comfortable speaking on the phone about what they're going through.
Do I remember correctly that somebody calling 988 could be transferred, or that they may transfer you to this local crisis line?
That is correct.
Okay. What else is available inside the City of Oceanside that we need to talk about and say, here are some resources that we haven't approached so far in this conversation that are out there and available to people?
When we're talking about, is the City of Oceanside aware of their mental health needs of their community, I believe that they're trying their best. Everyone's trying their best. And so when it comes to the City of Oceanside, having approved a crisis stabilization unit, having Oceanside Family Counseling kind of down the block, still having Vista Community Clinic and True Care in different locations here in Oceanside, they're still establishing that care for their mental health needs, their medical needs. So I do believe that the City of Oceanside is trying about where they can fill those gaps in there. I'm in acute care, so my main focus is acute care, and the fact that they have this CSU here really does help out the community.
I would mention, like, going back to building community. One that spans San Diego County, but there is some programs that are held here in Oceanside, is Armed Services Arts Partnership.
Okay.
And what they do, it's a creative arts program for veterans, and it's a community for anyone that's feeling isolated, disconnected, that's pertaining to military, veterans, or their family members, that they can connect with others that fit that category and engage in creative arts. So that could be stand-up comedy workshops, that could be creative writing, building plays, storytelling, anything that will assist in sharing your story. Because I feel like a lot of the times when the isolation takes place and you're feeling disconnected from the community, that's when the suicidal ideation can set in.
Mm-hmm.
So connecting to the community in that sense, in a greater creative space that allows you to funnel some of these inner thoughts, and with others that have maybe experienced something similar with the military background, it can also be helpful.
Are there any of the city's faith organizations that are active in participating in this kind of help? Does anybody know?
There is one, well, again, it's specifically for military and their families, but it's called The Anchor. It's here in Oceanside, which is a faith-based organization.
Okay.
Where they do men's groups, Bible studies, and it's called The Anchor.
The Anchor is a faith-based community, and it is a Christian organization. It's been around since 1951. It was started by 4 individuals trying to help the Marines that were going to the Korean War, and they've helped through every era of war. By feeding them, give them an environment to relax and just be themselves, we find that they discover they're not alone. We've been through what they've been through, and then we also offer Bible studies Monday through Friday, and we talk about things going on in their life. And then we also have other resources to provide if we need to send them to a medical professional, because we're not medical professionals. But I would say this, from our perspective of being a Christian organization and faith-based in Jesus Christ, we always point to Jesus and that how Jesus can heal you. And then we, from there, just build friendships. And wherever they go, we try to maintain those friendships and let them know, no matter where you go in the world, in the United States, you're not alone, you have friends, and you have a place to come back. And this becomes a home away from home for everybody.
I know that North County, or North Coastal Church also does, they have therapy services available on site there. I think they have an Oceanside campus, but the Vista location is the one that I'm most familiar with.
Okay.
They definitely have that. But I think as far as with youth, one of the most important things to realize is that a lot of times your child's school has resources and therapists that can come on campus. So making sure that you're aware and asking, what is available to my students should they need it, because they might have, Care Solace, they might have Palomar Family Counseling, they might have North County Lifeline, they might have all these different ones that people just aren't aware of, and so they're not able to take the advantage just because they don't know it's there.
Okay. We will be right back and continue this discussion later.
Some days it's hard for you to wake up, to give yourself reasons to live, starting every day off in a panic, desperately grasping for something to latch onto. Your mind is fixated on the worst, and I catch a glimpse of frustration in your eyes, but I trust you'll be fine like you say you will be. You're not you. You laugh, but it feels so empty. You smile, but without your identity. The world seems to move faster than you can breathe. You try to speak, but it's as if no one's listening, and you give up. You try to fix things yourself, but you can't quite seem to shake off this feeling. Hang on. There's something out there that will make life worth living for, whether it's feeling the sand between your toes or waking up next to someone you love. This is a journey we will fight together. This is not a journey you fight alone. If you or a loved one are in a crisis, call 1-800-273-8255.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see.
Third line, please.
DEPRESSION.
Mental illness doesn't show up on a scale. Bipolar? Sorting out a mental health concern is not something to attempt on your own.
Anxiety. I thought so.
Like many health conditions, help for mental illness takes professional diagnosis and treatment. And the sooner you seek treatment, the better.
Look at that. 6,000 steps and PTSD.
If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, don't go it alone. Find out what to do. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support.
Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out.
However you unwind, take time for you, so you can take care of business.
I think it's fair to say we do have problems. Are there holes in our system that are obvious? And what would they be?
Yeah, I think there's a few of them.
Okay.
I mean, you touched on one, I think was one of the most powerful ones. Communities, people have to learn how to share and have the courage to share and be vulnerable with how they're feeling and connect with a coach, teacher, therapist, counselor, principal, assistant principal, a neighbor, and get whatever they're feeling, get that off their chest. So we have to learn how to do that. The reason why I say that, because I'm in recovery myself, and it's part of the reason why I started Care Solace. And I had to learn how to do that. I wasn't raised in how to share my problem.
Okay.
And so, in fact, until I had a problem, I learned in the rooms how to share. So the vulnerability and the courage to share is, I think, a very important step. So that's a big hole.
Okay.
The second thing is there's so many resources that exist and so many good people that are willing to help. How do you aggregate that so you give the community an entry point, like one area that they can come to for all help? So you have an empathetic, warm ear that speaks their language, that empathizes with them and brings them from 11 to 2 and gets them access to the right, great people that are on the front lines here in this community to get help. So those two are really, really important things.
How would we as a community build that latter resource?
Yeah,
what would it look like?
Definitely you want to get us in the mix. You want to get everybody here at the table in the mix, but the city's got to get involved, the school district's got to get involved, and you create one entry point, one doorway that is a service live, text, email, or otherwise, chat, to be able to communicate and and people can call and get great customer service into these great resources that exist. So that needs to be developed.
Okay. What else do we as a community need to do? Should we do?
I want to touch upon something you said as far as, that warm, empathetic ear and, kind of getting rid of the stigma. And I think that's one of the biggest things is, I think, especially with this topic in particular, people are so nervous to say the words death, suicide, self-harm, that often we don't feel comfortable asking somebody else, have you been feeling so bad you felt like this? And I think that's one big hole, is teaching people from a young age that it's okay to ask that question so that they can get help, and being able, that way people feel, I feel confident in my ability to go and ask for help because I learned that it's okay to say these words.
Are there any other out-of-the-box kind of solutions that we ought to be considering? Is there any, I don't know what that would be. It would be out of the box. Anything, any ideas?
I always come back to you both touched on it, but why does Alcoholics Anonymous exist? Why does Narcotics Anonymous exist? Why, if you have cancer, why do you go to a group of like folks that are dealing with the same problem? Why does that exist, and why does that heal and help people recover. And so my thought always is, if I put myself in the future, like, it would be great to have an environment, whether it's a technology, whether it's a community event that's hosted twice a year, where you can come in and it's like a meetup for the issues you're dealing with. I just, like, for example, just to be super transparent, I'm going through a divorce, okay? And I share that because I know how to share now, and it's very difficult. And I've had to share that to get the support that I need. So I'm literally in a men's group of other business owners and other like-minded folks that are going through something similar. Why am I willing to do that? Why do I take the time to do that? Because it's healing. We commiserate, we share on our experiences, and I come out of there just feeling better. Yeah. And so my recommendation would be for the City of Oceanside and the community to create community issues and challenges that people can participate in, and come and just listen to what people are struggling with and their own issue, and see if that resonates with the community. I would test that out. That's some of the ideas.
One of the things I look at, so because I deal with acute crisis care, and so my whole ideology is build a pipeline. If somebody can go from the emergency department to a lower level care, to the crisis care, to ongoing care, whether that's SUD treatment or substance use treatment, whether that's housing resource, I just build that pipeline. And so if we can have something that has the whole pipeline in the same environment, so that I have my CSU that's right next to where the client can be able to get housing assistance or being able to sleep next to their primary care, build that whole thing within the confines of maybe a block or two, that would be fantastic. Because then you're talking about community. The person knows I can just walk down the street and talk to my regular doctor, and if I'm escalating or I'm feeling suicidal, I'm just going to walk down the street to the CSU, and then I'm just going to walk back down the street to ongoing care. So if we have something like that, that'd be fantastic, like a place where somebody can safely land.
Okay, Douglas, any thoughts on this? Something we could do?
Yeah, I want to go back to you mentioned the stigma. Like in the military, it's a huge part of the community. Being stigmatized for even sharing feelings. I would say even more specifically in certain branches like the Marine Corps, which we have here at Camp Pendleton, or the Army, where it's something that may be looked down, or to be able to share feelings or emotions, it can be considered like a masculine weakness in the service. So I think before, it was 22 veterans a day committed suicide. That was a number that was constantly repeated amongst each other. That was the statistic. I think since there's been more of a move towards destigmatizing suicide in the military, because it's become more common, that number has dropped a bit to about 19 or 20 a day. It's still alarming, but to the point where having these discussions and having organizations that can get together, build that community, rely on your brother or sister or whoever you're serving with or in your community to destigmatize suicide and what that looks like could be a great benefit for all of us.
It's interesting because Oceanside does a lot because the base is right there. And I think a lot of military towns do a good job. I know, for example, Wisconsin has one called Dry Hooch, and Marines come in like a cafe, or soldiers, whoever, and they get coffee and a pastry and they can talk about what's happening in their life. There's Operation Homefront that helps people to get homes. And then there's Front Sight up in Ontario, California. They have a gym you could use for free and work out and talk to people, and they're faith-based as well. There are so many different programs. You just got to know how to get connected. And once you know in that community is a connection, you'll realize you're not alone as well.
Okay.
So because I work with youth, I always go back to the youth, and I really think, they say youth are the future, and that is the reality. And I think building a youth that is able to be resilient and go through begins with that education that, right now my program only serves 7th through 12th grade, but if we could get some sort of program eventually to start in the elementary schools and, maybe even once a month, teach them some emotional regulation skills. Teach them like when you're frustrated, when you're this, when you're, stressed out, these are ways we can deal with it. Then we can start to build that and build up so that as they're going through those life changes that cause those stressors, we are seeing that they are better able to equip, themselves with these more positive coping skills. And also that if they aren't able to, that they have the words and the ability to ask for help.
Okay. I'm also thinking of like what we could do for somebody that's not professional, and we discussed a little bit about that, like with somebody that's in the midst of experiencing suicidality. Like you mentioned, safety plans, and that's something that's typically used when anyone is exhibiting any signs of it. But even something like another form of a safety plan is known as a crisis response plan. That's something that could be just done even like on an index card. And, talking to the person that's experiencing any of these things and sitting down with them and even just making a quadrant of 6 on an index card where it's on the first one, it's any warning signs that you may be exhibiting that you recognize it's building towards a sense of suicidality. So that could be irritability, rage, giving things away, anything that could be considered a warning sign.
Okay.
In the next quadrant, even just like coping strategies, like things that have worked for you in the past. So like listening to music, exercising. I know it can be difficult in those moments, in those dark moments, but recognizing that these are some of the tools that worked for you in the past, and maybe there's new ones that you can try. And then somebody to call, which would be like even on this, on that third quadrant, somebody that you can call that you can rely on, that would be confidential and that can listen to you with an open ear without any judgment.
Okay.
So that could be like a family member, a best friend, for military, somebody you served with, because you build strong connections in a short amount of time. And then in that quadrant, it can be something like you would write down like reasons to live. So that could be your family, your children, building a family, buying a home, traveling. In the other quadrant, even more reasons. There will always be more, and that can come over time. And then lastly, the professional numbers that you can call. So the 988, I want to clarify, press 1 is the Veterans Crisis Line. So it's 988, the national line, and then press 1 is for veterans.
Okay.
And that being a number you can call. If there's, a clinic that you can call as well. Anybody that you've worked with like professionally, that being something that you can just write in this card, and that being like a reminder that you can keep with you.
Okay.
So that could be, a strategy that's just like you're tending to someone that's experiencing any of this, and you're providing that to them, so they can carry with them.
Great advice.
There's also it's called Assist Training, which they normally hold in San Diego County. I believe it's ran by Living Works, but it's a 2-day training for applied suicide intervention skills training. So it's open to the community. I believe it's free or very low cost. It's a 2-day training that they normally provide to the community. And I think if you contact Assist or Living Works, I believe is the one that runs it here, they can provide that training to the community or the program.
And Suicide Prevention Council is also something that people can join if they are passionate about this and trying to figure out what else is in the community or how else they can help.
Okay. Sure. We will be right back and continue this discussion later.
PTSD isn't something that is just going to go away on its own.
Treatment works. It helps.
There's no shame in treatment.
Just do it. Your world will be so different afterwards.
It's a warrior sickness. It's not a coward sickness.
Never too late.
I guarantee you it'll help you.
It will change your life.
It turned my life around.
You can find peace.
Never thought I could feel this good.
Walk through those doors, take the step.
Go get help. It's the best and bravest thing you could ever do.
Treatment works.
You know you don't have to wear your PT gear anymore, right?
It's comfortable.
So how's civilian life treating you?
It's fine.
When I got out, I didn't want to admit that there was anything wrong because I felt like a failure. And then I realized, there's nothing to be ashamed of. So I started talking to someone. Maybe you are fine, but if you're not, it's okay.
Thank you.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
I have read that the highest general population of suicide rate is among the elderly male. And I'm curious, it's an interesting dichotomy because they are the ones who are most likely then statistically to commit suicide, but the most years of productive life are the youngest who might. What can we do for the elderly? What can we do for the homeless population?
Well, I just think for the homeless population, there's just a lack of housing resources.
Okay.
And so building affordable housing, whether that's Oceanside or in different cities, should be a key goal. But it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah. What do you do with homeless people who do not want to be housed? There is a segment of the population, of the homeless population, of that.
We got to meet people where they're at.
Okay.
And if it's at that time they say, no, I don't want to be housed, but you do need other specific resources. So a person that is unhoused can still seek out ongoing regular medical care, ongoing psychiatry, have ongoing counseling. So it's figuring out what they need, provide those services to where if they ever decide, hey, I do want to be housed, what are my other resources? Then you meet them where they're at and then provide that assistance.
And right off of Tremont Street in Oceanside is Turning Point Crisis Center, which is really great at helping those that are homeless or unhoused when they are in crisis.
Well, doesn't Lifeline also have a homeless program?
Yes, we do.
That does the same kind of case management thing.
Yes, we do. We have LifeSpring.
What about for elderly? Is there something specific for older people?
I mean, it just comes down to isolation, I mean, feeling anxiety, depression, sadness. I think, how do we address that, whether you're elderly or whether you're youth? That's really at the issue. But specifically in Oceanside, I'm not aware of how to tackle that issue here.
Children and teens are really suffering from mental health problems. We don't serve children and teens, but there's a definite need there. And we do serve patients anywhere between 18 and all the way up into the 90s. And we do have an older adult program, so we see mental health problems popping up more frequently in the older adult population. I think there needs to be processes in place for places like senior centers and older adult programs so that they are able to recognize the signs and symptoms when somebody might need help, and then they have the resources available to them so that they can encourage people to seek out those resources.
So that may be one of the places we have a hole that we could start to think out of the box to solve.
Isolation, sadness, depression. People that had a life partner die, right? What do they do? Now they're all alone, and they have no motivation to continue on. We need to help that particular person out.
I actually understand it. I have a friend of mine died about a month ago or so. His wife is now, and she's in her late 80s.
Yeah.
She is now all alone and a sea, and it's like there's nobody to talk to. And
that like other cities have similar to an access and crisis line, but you're not necessarily in a crisis. You just want to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Like Warm Line is a general number, but I know other cities specifically target ages 55 and over if they just want to talk to somebody. It's not therapy, but it's just, hey, how's your day going?
Yeah.
Right, and Elizabeth Hospice does have services here in Oceanside for somebody that is grieving the loss of somebody. So that is an amazing resource for they have grief groups, but then they also do individual services that can be beneficial. I did want to bring up one other population that is at risk.
Sure.
So LGBT youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide, and questioning are 2 times more likely. That goes down to isolation. Facts of bullying, stigma, things like that. And there is, the resource center in Oceanside for that it is a great resource, great support. Trevor Project is also a great resource for that.
It's a partnership. So we have been here for 17 years, and we grow with the City of Oceanside to also show the benefits of being inclusive and supportive. So the City of Oceanside has scores high when it comes to the HRC Equality Index. That means a city that is really doing their best to promote and to respect our diverse community. But also our families are coming here because there is this partnership. So LGBT Center being in Oceanside has been a great opportunity for the City of Oceanside, but also for all of us in making sure that our everyday lives is actually improved because of it.
We've talked to first responders and understand from talking to them the tremendous amount of pressure that they are on by having to experience trauma over and over and over and over again in their careers. Is there something specific or special that we ought to be considering that we should do as a community for our first responders?
I think as far as first responders, we need to remember that vicarious trauma is a real thing. That, you know, even if they aren't going through that traumatic event, they are witnessing that traumatic event, and that can still be traumatizing. And so encouraging them to, of course, you know, seek help. A lot of places are not aware that their work has like an employee assistance program, and those can provide, you know, those services. Sometimes it's even like 6 free sessions of therapy to kind of try to help them get through that. So just making sure that they're aware of what's available to them and aware of burnout. I think we need to be aware that they are still people, right? And they're not superheroes that can do everything all the time. So burnout can be a real thing, and sometimes we do need to make sure that we're taking care of our first responders and making sure that we are checking in with them to see like, hey, do you need a few days? How can I assist this? Do you need to take some lower cases first? To make sure that everybody is kind of balanced out and everybody's able to regain that to go back in.
That debriefing is especially important because, you know, as we talk about being able to get things off your chest, like you're checking in with that traumatic event, you're checking in with the people who had to deal with that, and like you said, do you need a couple days off? Some people don't have that luxury, but being able to maybe in those moments take 5-10 minutes to yourself and, you know, see videos of cute cats and like some other stuff like that. Being able to take care of yourself, but give them that space to do so.
Right. Yes. The fire chief and police chief made an interesting contrast because the fire chief, the fire people work in teams and companies. The police are in individual squad cars by themselves. Very interesting kind of difficult problem for those particular sets of first responders. I'd like to thank you all very much for your time, your energy, and what you do for this community. I hope that the end result of this is we as a collective community can stand up and do something for our brethren and sisters and make this a better world. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here on KOCT. I'm Kent Davy. It's been a pleasure.
KOCT, the voice of North County.
I'd like to see KOCT become recognized as an important community resource, bringing the people into the process, to have the people deeply involved in it, know what's going on, and provide their inputs. This makes for a good, progressive community.
KOCT television is a pretty special place, shining spotlights on very important nonprofits and city-involved partners, and that's an honor.
Homelessness was just exploding in our city, and I felt like I would be able to help and make a difference.
When I realized how many people were going hungry, that was scary to me. It really opened our eyes, and we want to change that dynamic.
All people deserve to live a life free from the crimes of domestic violence and sexual assault.
I think art is really a reflection of the community's soul.
And we provide space for the community to advance arts in Oceanside.
Art belongs to everybody. It heals, and it brings neighborhoods together.
We envision a world where people live in freedom of their own identities, free of violence, and not only tolerated but celebrated.
The community can work together to elevate each other. That raises the tide. Everybody's ship rises as well.